Hello, and welcome to Night Clerk Radio, episode 153. Coming into August. It's going to be about the middle of the month when this drops. And at least at time of recording, for the last month, it has been unpleasantly hot. That combined with just general weird seasons. I don't feel like I really got a fall. It's kind of had a winter and then a summer.
Yeah,
got me thinking about Climatewave, Ross. For no reason.
No reason, you say.
No reason. But it's also one of those like super niche subgenres of vaporwave that is, like an interesting mix of a lot of what I like. So, classic vaporwave, of course, which we'll get into today. There's signal wave, there's broken transmission. It's, one of these very fluid genres, depending on how the artist approaches it. And I don't think we've really talked about it very much other than like, we did one episode that we called Climate Wave, but I think we actually talked about Nature Wave because we were idiots at the time.
That sounds like
and
us.
Then did an actual like Weather Channel episode, and then maybe like one or two other actual Nature Wave episodes.
Yeah,
because Nature Wave is more like soundscapes, like that sense of place of being in nature. Maybe like a little bit of like environmentalism, like green solar punk kind of gets adjacent to that. Whereas Climate Wave traditionally is much more, like I said, signal wave broken transmission around the Weather Channel. I know we did a whole episode on the Weather Channel. I am a Weather Channel kid. A formative part of every snow day was watching the Weather Channel. And it had just, if you missed that episode, go back and check it out. I'll put it in the show notes. But just in general, it had for its time a really interesting, like smooth jazz VHS aesthetic, which feels silly to say at the time because that's very like, smooth jazz is a fair thing to say at the time, but there wasn't like a concept of a VHS aesthetic like there is now. So that's very Jameson recategorizing the past, but it's just a really nice sample set approach, an aesthetic approach. Also, I like a lot of the visuals that are associated. Weather Channel also had very unique visuals for the time, like this very vibrant blue and this kind of like, say it again, like VHS-y kind of font a lot of times because they had to put a lot of text information on a screen, and it was an era where people were on like 480i.
Yeah, it was all
CRTs.
procedurally generated. It was all like
it was all procedurally generated. No one was sitting there typing it in the same way.
Yeah.
So a good example is like the font that's on the YouTube and like MP3 art for Night Clerk. That's like a very classic NTSC VHS font. It looked like that kind of. Not quite as exaggerated, but that aesthetic and these procedurally generated maps and just weather on the 8s. And here's the 5-day forecast. And you got all this little clip art and stuff. It was a great vibe. It was wonderful to see if school was canceled too.
Yeah, exactly. Snow days,
I think the main memory from.
Yeah. I agree that it's the Weather Channel and weather sort of media in general is formative for a generation of people, at least. And it's interesting you mentioned, being personally affected by the weather, because I went to Gen Con last weekend and for the first time ever, there was a tornado warning. And in fact, a tornado did briefly touch down in Indianapolis on Saturday, the busiest day of Gen Con. Heavy rainstorm. Gen Con, by the way, is this tabletop gaming convention. It had like 74,000 people show up this year. It's absolutely huge. It's huge for board games, card games, role playing games. I try to go every year. It's always a lot of fun. The Indianapolis Convention Center is this massive building, and it's connected to all these hotels through skywalks. And they developed the rain was heavy enough that the roof leaked in several places in the main exhibit hall, flooding out some sections of the building. One of the hotels, my hotel, the Omni Severn, got flooded in the lobby as well. And then there's a tornado warning, which for me is like background radiation. I don't even notice it anymore. I was waiting for a restaurant reservation and I was just by this giant window in a hotel. And people were like, oh, there's the shelter's just down the hall. It's like, it's fine. I'm not going to move. I'm tired. If it happens, it happens.
First time.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very much a first time kind of thing. Because all these people I heard from all these people who are from like the West Coast or from places where they don't have these kind of warnings growing up. And so they were like freaked out, noticeably worried about it. And so, the most intense weather I've ever experienced at Gen Con, and I've been going since 2007. Most years, obviously I skipped 2020 and a couple of years after that, but
sure.
Then I get home and like, you message me, let's record, in a week. And I was like, great. So listening to Climatewave albums and like this cool music, then like the other axis of this is like, you mentioned the Weather Channel and this calming, smooth stuff. But the other side of that is weather emergency media, especially like radio and TV broadcasts with that harsh, digital buzzing sound to really alert people and let them know this is unpleasant because you need to pay attention to this. And, thinking about this, listening to these albums over the week, like this is vaporwave in a nutshell, isn't it? It's comfort versus anxiety. We have this beautiful, like cool jazz, just new age music, very, very world music, as they would call these pleasant computer graphics, just delivered 24/7. And yet, on the other hand, it's like, you need to find shelter or you're going to die, kind of like paranoid, anxiety inducing sort of media. And it oscillates between the two. If you think about it, like the fact that they've stylized all of this weather information, all this weather media in the calmest, most sedate way possible of the thing that like was one of the primordial plots is man versus nature. It's like, for most of human history, then we were at the mercy of weather entirely. We didn't know when it would show up, when we'd lose our homes. And now we have early warning systems and whatnot, some infrastructure to deal with it. And now it's just this pleasant abstracted thing that you can be consumed on a TV channel that still has commercials, but like where it's this utterly terrifying thing of, we are not in control of the planet. We are, as much as we like to think, we can't entirely erase the fact that occasionally a tornado or a flash flood is going to wreck this part of our environment, our homes and our businesses and whatnot. And Climatewave, these albums are really good at like delivering that experience, both the comfort, the anxiety, all in one. And it's pretty neat. And it was just really, again, just like listening to these albums right after I went through a major weather event in India. Was like, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, this shit is real. This is a little more anxious than I thought back in the day.
Hitting that comfort, anxiety for sure.
Yeah.
Especially depending on how they approach it, because some do have a bit more of the like weather alert aesthetics in them, or that understanding, or get darker too, which we'll talk about. It was very funny though. It's a little off topic, but I was thinking about just disasters in general and wondering at what point, like, do you accept something when it gets like normalized in movies? Because I was trying to think of like a tornado movie before Twister.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
There's probably not many. I mean, obviously Wizard of Oz, right? But like,
well, that's okay. I mean like a disaster film. Okay. You get skyscrapers and there's like towering inferno, right? And like at some point, California was like, okay, we'll make earthquake.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't really a big thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess they never were again. It's not like a deluge. There's not like I don't know, the Midwest kaiju genre of tornadoes. Yeah,
it didn't have the same, like, I mean, I think it's one of those cases where it was like when special effects technology hit a level, they could finally do it. And they
could just do it.
Yeah. Like they couldn't do a convincing tornado in a 70s. Also, like 70s disaster films are all big ensemble pieces that take place over, you have 12 characters and you got to get all their stories established. Yeah. And there's tornadoes over in 10 minutes or whatever. So
Twister had a bit more.
Well, yeah, because they were chasing the tornadoes and they were going, they weren't just hit by one tornado and then it's over. Apparently there is a 1996 movie called Tornado starring Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. And there's definitely like when we watched it movie night called like The Christmas Tornado or something. Oh yeah. It was after that. Tornado hits them all during Christmas or something. I don't know. I don't want to get into it. It's just a half joke pontification. But today, so what are we doing actually for Climatewave today? So very simple. I just went through the Climatewave tag, poked around, picked out 5 albums that are technically released recently, although 2 of them at least are re-releases. So it's okay. It's not a cheating because it's not a new music episode, but
it's a sampler.
What's going on?
It's a little charcuterie.
It is.
Tray.
It's a smorgasbord.
Yeah. What's the
that's fancier.
Audio cootery? I don't know. We'll workshop it.
I don't like the sound of that word. It doesn't sound like a good word.
Okay, yeah, we gotta workshop a term.
We'll workshop it. All right, we'll play some fucking music.
長いものの指輪長いもののネックレス長いものの指輪長いもののネックレス長いものの指輪
So the way I've organized this is just, I don't know, it's almost like in ascending mood, maybe. Accidentally, it's a little bit of like things that caught me off guard as being Climatewave into more classic Climatewave. But I think largely, mood.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, is the way I would go. But otherwise, there are no particular order of like, I liked this one more than this one. Or whatever.
I agree with your ordering in that with that criteria in mind.
Yeah. So first up is a collab album. The Japanese translates as far as I know, Don't Jump the Gun by Tef, Carte Blanche, and Tokyo, which I think also translated to like the eternal world. It was a little unclear exactly on that kanji. So Naoko, she'll let me know. This was released in July of 2026 on World End Collapse, which is hydroplaned into a false reality record label. And this one is, I would say, like we're talking about mood, kind of the most just like nice classic vaporwave, smooth jazz, late night vibes, very smooth, a lot of great like samples, great plunderphonics, pulling from Japanese media, not as obviously Climatewave in the way some of the other ones are, where they're just like, this is just Weather Channel clips and stuff like that. But there is sort of this move through like being a little more upbeat, a little more hopeful at first, and then some like really great tracks like Productive Workday. That sample, the first sample was Blue Airmail, which is the first track off this album. I just picked the first one to be lazy about it. But then there's some references like Sunshine and Rain. And then as you go through, it gets a little slushier. There's some like real like phaser wave, slush wave tracks kind of sneaked in there that kind of cut through so that like more saccharine late night lo-fi, I guess. Saccharine's maybe a strong word, but yeah, I just really liked it. I had fun checking it out. Tef and Carte Blanche are people who've been on a lot of compilations, but very rarely have we talked about like full albums from them. So it's kind of the closest I could manage.
Yeah, this is like a classic vaporwave album, like in terms of its approach, sampling, and the kind of techniques they do to the music in terms of distorting it. And yeah, choosing when it's going to be, just the sample music is going to be pleasant. And like when things get a little uneasier towards the back half of the album, as they work on the tracks some more. Yeah, no, but like Japanese weather music, pleasant lounge jazz, and just enough distortion and pitch shifting to let you know something's going on. It's out of all of these, this is the most cheerful one. It's again, if you love classic vaporwave, this is a great album.
Yeah, and that cheer is really for like 80% of it, because there are some later tracks like Mindless Driving Around and Car Radio Interference, and then the last track, which I forgot to translate, is very much like more staticky, more lo-fi, more slushy.
Yeah, slushy.
Which, depending on how you think about it in the context of climate and climate change, could start to hit a bit on that anxiety side of things.
I mean, we keep calling this like a vaporwave subgenre, but like the signal wave aspect of Climatewave is just really also like the other pillar of this subgenre, this microgenre. Like, like you can't. It really is like the center between the Venn diagram between vaporwave and signal wave, because like it's so essential to Climatewave, right? Is the radio, because that's the last thing you'll be able to pick up after everything else drops. Your cable TV breaks, your internet breaks. You always got that portable battery operated radio, right? You have your disaster stuff set up in the laundry room.
Maybe not even battery. Maybe there's a little hand crank, guys.
Oh yeah, hand crank one. Yeah, I think I have that somewhere.
You should.
Yeah.
Where you live, you should absolutely have.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. I hope it's I put it in the laundry room. But we'll
So we're just going to do these really quick sort of discussions of each album. So I really liked it. Nice job. to those three. And moving on to our second album, so we're not here for an hour and a half. Dug up Weather Scan by Channel 71, released on Hitachi Home Video, June 2026. And this was a good episode to sneak this one in because we've done Channel 71 again in a lot of Signal Wave, that sphere of people that like work with Naoko and everything and do, SignalCon and all this type of stuff. But it's just it's a EP. So it's a little short to do like a new music episode off in June, but it's perfect to talk about here. And this is the first one where we're explicitly into what classically you think of as like Climatewave, Weather Channel, Weather Wave, which is much more like weather broadcasts, weather references. So the tracks are like Doppler radar. Track 5 is 955 millibars, which is like a low pressure system. Storms coming, and just overall, just a smidge, like a little splash of cream. Well, let's set this away because that lightens it. Fuck. Anyway, just a little bit to me more ominous at times. Just sits a little bit different.
Yeah, the broken transmission like aspect is a lot stronger.
I think that's it. That like little echo jammy. Well, it's not quite echo jammy because it's the long track. Like, Doppler radar is because that's the one I'm looking at. And that's like 30 seconds and just like more in that smooth jazz sampling tradition, but just a little bit more compressed. It just feels a little more constrained. It's not quite like bright classic Signal Wave in the same way. It's classic vaporwave in the same way. It's much closer to like broken transmission Signal Wave.
Yeah.
And I'll just always associate that like decay feeling, even if it's not like strongly mashed into the production in the same way. I'll really associate those genres with being like a little bit more darker just because they have that essence of decay. And there's like, I think a little bit of a story here where I'm pretty sure, the album art is the Northeast of the US and there's a big red kind of like approaching hurricane, which also works out because Doppler radar is how you'd see that. The second track has coordinates for its title, which I think were like to Rhode Island. I looked it up. I think a town like Wesley, Rhode Island.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't write it down, which is what's kind of where that storm on the cover art is headed.
Yeah.
And then
big blotch of red.
Weather outlook. Yeah. Storm surge. That's my weather memory is I was in North Carolina at the Outer Banks when Hurricane Bertha started to make landfall in like 1996. Even like it was pretty off coast and like we didn't really have to I don't remember evacuating. We may have just because like vacation was over basically. It's like, we're done. We're just leaving because the hurricane's coming. But I don't think it was a forced evacuation in the same way. But yeah, as soon as those storm waves start to come up, like even if it's still way off coast, it's incredible the effect it has on the tide.
Oh yeah.
And then 955 millibars is like your storm pressures. So rough time for the New England in this one.
Yeah, I am endlessly fascinated watching footage of like floods and storm surges of, people in buildings watching as the water levels rise. It's creeping tension, Yep. Yeah. What part of the structure is going to fail first? The doors, the windows, the walls. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
yeah. Really nice little EP. Really good storytelling in it. I didn't even pick up on all of that, but yeah. Good insight.
That's what I'm here for, Ross.
Hell yeah.
You're my tornado guy and I'm your coastal hurricane guy. Okay, moving on to our third album, just churning along. We have Recreational Planner by Camden County Climate Society, who is not credited as like an alias for anybody else, released on Caldercore out of New Jersey.
Great name.
So that was one of the things that drew me to this. And it's I was trying to stick to like summer releases, but this is from March of this year, 2026. But I do love when albums or artist groups are like fake groups. I don't know why. I've seen this otherwise before. There's like a Signal Wave album I wanted to do. Unfortunately, it's from like the 90s, so it's not really Signal Wave in the modern sense. But they had some really fun name. It was just a re-release. But I just like when it's called like Dream Sleep Research Team and for their slush wave and stuff like that. That little bit of this does not exist type deal. And this to me is this is what I was really, I think, is that sweet spot of what I was really looking for, which is like obvious Weather Channel, Weather Soft, Weather Wave, cram all these
literally the
names
album art.
Yeah, the album art, the samples, the kind of theming around being reporting and stuff like this. I had a lot of fun with this one. It's a very classic vaporwave, but still like gets very odd, like really glitchy at times,
Yes.
like really doing with like the broken transmission at times. I think it was that sort of like uneasy climate wave that I was looking for.
Yeah, like I mentioned Don't Jump the Gun is pretty classic vaporwave, but this is like felt like they did more work to distort and glitch out the tracks, using the plundered audio as a, foundation, then build upon it more than the sampling of the Don't Jump the Gun. So I always dig when an album unexpectedly glitches out, because I think part of the fun of Climatewave is you get lulled into these like, yes, the Weather Channel, smooth jazz, take me away. And then they interrupt it with like, an emergency radio broadcast or tornado, like whatever it is. And it just jolts you out of that. And that like lulling you into comfort and then like, spike of anxiety. It was great. Yeah. And this album's full of that. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I think the comparison to Don't Jump the Gun is actually interesting. If someone were to ever be like, oh, I don't really understand, like, what's signal wave versus broken transmission? That'd be an interesting comparison. Like, they're both climate wave, but this one is not as glitchy as this one, or the ways in which it's distorted are different and more subtle versus just being, like, more just chopped up.
Yeah. There's also a choice between using Japanese media versus, American/North American, because I think, like our previous artist said, they were located in Ottawa. So, or maybe that's just the label. I think that's the label.
That's the label.
So, yeah. But like, when you use Japanese media, and you're releasing this for one would presume a Western audience, it's sort of distant. It's sort of like, distancing that, making it more abstract, and this is more real, because we all know the Weather Channel. Yeah. Really good titles too.
Oh yeah.
I'm a sucker for just font work in these, like Camden City.
Like all your cats.
Yeah. Well, the different fonts, like Camden City counters, like
all the kerning.
Yeah. Well, it's like in a Courier typewriter font, and
Okay.
You remember you could use different fonts on web pages and even in like metadata for MP3s. Yeah. And the ID3 information, it's nice.
But yeah, it is fun. Like you said, great track titles. There's some are just like dates and times. Others are, vacation interruption, which actually works for what I was just talking about with my childhood trip to the Outer Banks. Others are unscheduled maintenance. And there's just all these like, broadcast voices just streaming through. Meteorologist wanted, chance of rain, 100%.
Yep.
It's interesting because like the processing sometimes on the vocals, I know it's very classic vaporwave or whatever. And I think it's maybe this just in my head because they recently did the 10-year. But some of the announcing, I know it comes from, weather reports and stuff. Also made me think of like, I don't know if there's like I don't want to say there's a Molosoft component to it, but it did feel very Kmart tapes at sometimes, Welcome Kmart Shop. Yeah. Just that big echo boomy, like resonating through some space feel. Thematically, otherwise very different, but some of the big booming voices I really liked. All right, so that brings us to our fourth album, which is Quiet Storms by Hallmark 87. So it's re-released. So this was originally released in August of 2022. Re-released in June of 2026 on Hush Tones Records, which is Brick Mason's sister label to Geometric Lullaby. We've talked about Hush Tones a lot, and he's been doing a lot of these weather climate re-releases, actually. So like they did a re-release of an album we covered, which is a 9.0 Mega Thrust.
Oh, yeah.
So they recently did a re-release of that. The fifth album is part of this blast of re-releasing all this kind of climate wave, signal wave. So great label. Check out all these labels we talked about. And this one is moving even a little bit darker, which makes sense kind of given, being released on Hush Tones, and less obvious like weather samples and much more like more ambient.
Yeah. There's a lot of looping, a lot of droning.
Just another step to being a little bit darker than the previous, like the tone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hallmark 87 anyway. Yeah. I actually listened to this album before we did this episode. I've been going through Hallmark's work, and of course, Atrium and Academy, big fan. This album reminds me a bit in terms of like Infinity Frequency's approach to signal wave, in terms of like the choice of samples and the style. but like how they choose what to loop and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I listened to this on the YouTube, the Vapor Memory channel. The whole album's been uploaded. There's some good comments on here, and one of the earliest comments is like, this album would be a lot better if it didn't have the radio alerts, just the music and the sound of weather. And then someone's like, I don't think so. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's literally the point.
Yeah,
though.
right? Yeah, exactly.
It's very funny.
But yeah, it's very ominous. It's very like you're listening to the radio and hoping that the tornado doesn't touch down near your neighborhood, kind of, or the storm. It feels like it's a much more tense album than the previous ones. And the description is severe weather patterns observed from a child's perspective. Because it doesn't even necessarily be tornadoes, just bad thunderstorms and heavy rain, cause flash flooding, can cause problems. So, and some kids get freaked out by that stuff. So yeah. Great album. I highly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just love all those like broken looping drones and stuff. It's just so ominous. Just works so well.
Yeah.
Just so well put together.
Yes. Visiting this channel reminds me of visiting an old library ruin filled with numerous scrolls containing many knowledge and philosophies. You just get lost in adventure with your own imaginations. There's also someone who's like, oh, this reminds me of Mount Shrine. I miss him. And which is...
Oh, yeah. There you go. That's very appropriate. Yep. That's an incredible accidental segue that I'm just going to go with. And I don't care if you had another comment.
That try to set you up there.
Beautiful. Professionals here, folks. This is all planned. Ross saying that sets us up for our fifth album, Nordrong, by Lynnhaven Virtual Plaza, aka Cesar Alexander, who also released music for Cryo Chamber as Mount Shrine. Rest in peace, Cesar forever. And this is the not even classic vaporwave. It's just vaporwave. It was originally released in 2013, in October 2013, on 2060 Records. Had a couple releases since then, and then was released on Hush Tones with like a full proper vinyl pressing and everything, June of this year. And man, this is a good album. And this is actually, by listening history for doing this was actually the first one I listened to, because I was kind of curious because, 2013 is just an era of vaporwave I just was not like super attentive to. So I had somehow missed this, listening to Lynnhaven and stuff. And as soon as that sax hits on track 1, I was hooked. It's incredible Climatewave, vaporwave. He was so goddamn good at what he did. Just jazz, little bits of weather news, a little bit of drone dark ambient, a little bit of that Mount Shrine coming through. You just hear it in what they do. A lot of like, I don't know, what would you call it? Would you call it like trip hop? I'm really bad at this electronic
There are
genres.
bits of trip hop. Like it goes from jazz to in some of the samples. Like it definitely is trip hop in places. Like not the entire album.
I always get that wrong. Oh, it's a tag. Yeah, okay. I see it in the tags, actually. Sorry. Some of it's really chill. Some of it's not so chill. And it's kind of the other side of like, in terms of comfort anxiety, thinking about this both as this nostalgic childhood memory, but also the reality of like, what futures are being taken away from you by climate change. It's like perfect. It's like a perfect vaporwave album for this. So like, I think while I said maybe aesthetically, Recreational Planner was maybe more aesthetically, maybe what I was looking for. I think like tonally, this just hit everything for me.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it.
Yeah, this is the first of the albums I listened to. You linked to all of them in the show notes, and like, I had already listened to Hallmark 87 months ago, but like, I started this album as instantly hooked from the first seconds of the first track. Yeah, incredible sampling, just really impeccable timing in terms of like switching from music to a weather alert to like, like, again, just talking about like, this is really good. Anyways, by the way, the climate's collapsing. Just a reminder, here's back to this cool ass trip hop music, It was great. Entirely my jam. I love the little notes here. Welcome to Nordrog, a place where Null Mod, trademark, Surrealistic Enterprise has chosen to make our last tests before Lynnhaven Virtual Plaza's grand opening. We were testing all of our carbon imminence, non-standard cardinals, and our maps and heavy climate change day by day. It's just great. Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny because it is 2013, which is now almost 15 years ago, 13 years ago. And I think one of the things that benefits this album, and I don't want to, pontificate too much on their thought process, Lindshaven's, or compare it too strongly to the other 4 albums, which are various degrees of more contemporary. But there is something about that 2013 era that just hits a little different, because I don't think at the time there is so much. Again, I don't know what other artists on this episode are thinking, so don't take this too literally. But those albums have like less concern about subgenre because it was just vaporwave.
Oh yeah.
So like some of it feels free of like drifting into the more dark ambient drone type stuff that's reminiscent of Mount Shrine, and just it's a bias. Like if I didn't know when they were all released, would I think this? I don't know, but it just feels more free, and it would be cool to have like. To hear more music like that, where people are just kind of making what they want and not so worried about now having like 15 years of history of what vaporwave is or whatever. Just do your own thing, make cool shit.
Yeah.
I think is really the appeal of a lot of like newer albums I've enjoyed this year, is that they're not just trying to continue to be 2016 vaporwave.
Yeah.
My rising interest in like breaks and jungle and IDM and all that stuff, which I was not super into even a couple years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of vapor breaks kind of stuff coming out, which is I find real interesting. Like a lot of it's more influenced by like breakcore per se, but like tomato. That's all.
Sure, to me, I don't know enough to say that.
Yeah, I couldn't even really. It's stuff I'm a little fuzzy on too, even though I listen to it all the time. And interestingly enough, just as an odd side note, Cryo Chamber actually released another one of Mount Shrine's albums, Yasu Ether Project, which was released on Mount Shrine's own Bandcamp before the page closed, and it was sent to him, but like they took the time to remaster it and put it out, and you can listen to the whole album on YouTube. And it is, again, Mount Shrine is like probably my all-timer like dark ambient artist. In terms of like, I just need something kind of brooding to listen to while I read it late at night. Like it's just, I could just put on any of his stuff and I know it's all just gonna, yeah.
I mean, we did that. We did a whole episode on him, kind of his 2 famous albums, one from each of those projects, Lindshaven and Mount Shrine. And Mount Shrine is definitely one of the most, for me, enduring dark ambient, because a lot of that stuff just doesn't stick with me in that like drone cryo chamber sort of aesthetic. A lot of the dark ambient I remember is stuff I've repeated all over and over again, like mushrooms and mouse music and like the fun stuff, but not a lot of that just stuff always sticks with me, but some of that did. Yeah.
The difference between being like a decent and like a great dark ambient artist is very subtle and requires a lot of nuance. And, Mount Shrine clearly had it in ways that a lot of other artists, that like I'll listen to 1 or 2 of them and say, all right, that's fine. But then I keep going back to Mount Shrine.
Yep.
Nor Drawing is definitely going to be an album I'm going to be hitting back because, again, it just hits so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to buy it so I can stick on my...
There you go. Just grab a copy.
Well, yeah, so I can have it on my
Support
Bandcamp.
Brick Mason.
Yeah.
Yes. Support pals.
Yeah.
But I guess that ended up, I thought it might turn into like an accidental, not accidental in a bad way, but a little secondary Mr. Alexander tribute. But I think there's a whole tonal range. I think anybody who's into this can find something that they'll enjoy.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage checking all of these albums out. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you are doing well in these hot months, unless you're, I guess, in the Southern Hemisphere. It shouldn't be so northern normative. I don't know. I hope your winter is going well, if it's winter where you are. Next episode, it's, of course, August. From the August new music. I don't know what Ross is doing. I know what my pick is, and it's a good one, of course, as always. If you like what we do and you want to hear more of it, we have a Patreon, Night Clark Radio at patreon.com. We got bonus episodes. There's a Discord server. There's some solo episodes from Ross and myself, some rambly essays. So something for everyone, probably.
Yeah.
For a narrow definition of everyone, there's something for you. You can also find us at nightclerkradio.com, Nightclerk Radio on YouTube, which is probably where you're checking this out now. Nightclerk Radio on Blue Sky, Ross Payton at Blue Sky, whatever works for you, wherever you do choose to check us out. Take a moment, hit a like, a subscribe, a thumbs up, whatever works for you. It does help out. But most importantly, we always advocate word of mouth, build community, talk about what you like. We hope we're part of it. And once again, stay cool and or warm, depending on where you live and what your weather's like. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.